Gill's Pan Shop in Trinidad. They've gotten their steel from different places in the past, but they just happened upon this steel that comes from Germany.
Okay.
And instantly, all the builders and tuners loved it.
Yeah.
And Mazzini, you know, when he was interacting with them, he was able to consistently get the same stuff.
Yeah.
And now he has this harebrained scheme, and I think it's going to work out. He's like, you know, so he has to, you know, pay a lot of shipping to get this, you know, these big batches of barrels from Germany. So he calls them and he's like, what if you guys opened a steel plant, you know, and make barrels in Trinidad?
Right, right.
Because there isn't one. And they're like, well, is this mainly for pan? Because
it's not enough.
They're like, how many pan? Yeah, it's not enough to make it profitable.
Right, right.
So he starts calling
oil
companies.
Right. Yeah, in the Caribbean.
All the oil, and you know, all the oil companies in Trinidad, Venezuela, and he's working all that now, getting them on board, so it will be profitable for this
supply
company,
and demand.
and that way there will be this good steel plant, steel good for steel drums in Trinidad,
right,
and that
right.
would be fantastic.
Right,
that would
right.
be fantastic. But already, you know, the best tuners down there, Bush and Guppy, they're already buying the steel off of Gill's because
Nice.
they love it. Yeah. It's hard to make a profit just doing new drums.
Yeah.
Most tuners do a balance.
Yeah.
You know, they get orders, they go out on the road, they're building reputation, they're blending bands for panoramas and festivals and things, and then they're coming back home, and they've gotten a couple orders, so they're putting out new bands.
Yeah.
And so they balance it out, so they make a living. But they're making, if it's 50-50, they're making 80% of their money when they do those road trips.
Okay.
Okay? And
It's like a musician going out on tour. You make the money out there. You don't sit home and just sell CDs.
You're not making any money when you're for running on your soundboard.
Yeah.
And or making a record.
Yeah.
You know.
It's easy.
And it takes a long time to make a record, and then you might make some money from the record, but you really make money. You really make money when you go out and you're playing gigs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a very good parallel. That's a very good parallel. And I never thought of it like that. That's an excellent parallel. So we switched to a salary system. Now here's what was happening. At that point, there was 5 or 6 of us that were getting to be pretty good tuners that we were going out on the road and we were blending bands, and like, you know, that's when I started blending here. This was around 2002. Like every 6 months, a top tuner was like with tears in their eyes out of loyalty to Ellie. Like we're 30 years old now.
Yeah.
We can't afford to live. We're becoming the best tuners in America, and like,
but you kind of stifle at the same time.
We're making $20,000 a fucking year, and the thing is, every time one of the top tuners left, other people had to step up.
in.
Okay, so the company kept losing tuners, and to the point where there wasn't any.
Wow.
There was guys who could build the drums, but Ellie couldn't take on making the same amount, tuning that many drums a month, and training.
Yeah.
Because it was trickle down training. Like, you know, whoever the top tuner was
teaches the next.
Well, him and Ellie.
Right.
Because when you have two teachers, like Ellie didn't know how, especially at that time, didn't know how to explain what he was doing. Because he had been doing it by intuition his whole life.
For so long, yeah.
He didn't know how to put it into words. And we, like, those of us that were part of the first generation, like, along with Ellie, we started developing a vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like, for parts of the note.
Yeah.
And for a name for this problem and that problem. And once that vocabulary, once we could all use that vocabulary with each other, the next people that came on as new apprentices, they were learning faster.
Right.
They were learning faster than it took us.
Those things became a little more standardized.
Because Ellie could, like, walk in and show them, but that didn't mean they could do it. But then me or Darren could come in and like piece it out, like speak to them, say it in a different way, and then another person could say it in a different way.
Yeah.
And it would be easier for that person for the jigsaw puzzle to fall into place.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Now I see what Ellie was trying to say. Now, and Darren and Billy, like, and so those apprentices were learning faster. If you see a drum that says Manette Steel Drums on it, mostly in high schools and colleges, is where we were getting business, like 7-piece bands, 12-piece bands for like high schools and colleges, percussion departments and stuff. When you see that, a lot of people think it's like, oh, that's Ellie's drum. No. That was us. And Ellie would check the drum before we went out the door. If there was a note or two that he's like, this has got my name on it, then that's steel drums.
Harmonics not right.
These 2 or 3 notes, this is good enough. Come. And then he showed, and then it would be a lesson. Like, this drum, this note sounded like this. It's because it's shaped wrong. This is what you need to do. Oh. So that's how, we were continuing our learning. Even though we were pretty good tuners at the time, and we still were learning the finer things, to try to get closer to his level.
It's really important to get it right when you record, because it's harder to fix it afterwards with EQs and stuff.
Yes,
I mean, you can't just pull down a 450 hertz.
Yeah.
You got to find the harmonics above that, and even sometimes below that to try. So it's kind of like tuning a pan when you're engineering. For me,
Well, you're sculpting sound.
Yes, it's the same
in a different way.
Yeah.
You're sculpting the sound. The player's playing. You're the one that's deciding where to put the microphone.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, and you're transferring that sound, and it is. That's another good analogy. And
it's not easy for me as an engineer. Piano is one of the hardest things to get sounding right, because every note is different. Every strike is different, because you excite different harmonics. I was listening, I was like, Leonard, what the hell? Something's wrong. I mean, I don't like this pan, but it wasn't a pan. It was, some of it was a pan, but it was a sticks.
A player has,
It was his mallet. The rubber was too hard.
I learned that in percussion school.
But for me, when I first started thinking about how to mic a pan was when I was playing with pan masters, playing drums with them, and we go to all these festivals and there's engineers and they come up and they start sticking mics everywhere. And
exactly.
And they mic the drums like they would mic a conventional drum set. So the drums would come through like fat and nice, but the pans would be weak. And then they also, another mistake they do is they put the pans in the monitors. And you have the one thing I tell them is treat it somewhat like a brass section. A horn section, they balance themselves against each other. Trumpets playing, trombones playing.
Yeah. And
for them to harmonize and get the right dynamics and blend, they have to hear each other well. So it has, if you're doing anything with monitors, it has to be natural sounding or none at all, and none is usually best. One of the best recordings I've heard, steel band, was one mic, a large diaphragm mic.
It's one overhead mic.
One overhead mic that, and the key is to find the right position.
Mic that's getting everything.
Yeah, just find the right position, because remember in the old days when they recorded, what they did is they would have one mic and they would have to place the band around that mic, and they would record and listen, and when they listen, they change the mix by putting the drum set further or bringing the vocalist closer. And that's how they got the right blend. So the same thing is true for pan, So one mic is good. You can do wonders with one mic, or two if you want to do a stereo.
Yeah. Band owners, captains, like over the first 2 years, where they would, the way it would happen is I have some solid trading friends who know everybody in the pan scene.
Yeah.
And like they would take me to bands and introduce me to the owner.
Yeah.
The owner would he would go find the worst pan in the band.
To test you out.
Yeah, to test me out.
Let me see you tune this thing.
And I would. And he'd be like, All right. I mean, a lot of them would be, wow, that's good, but if like you know, the tuner in our band, we've been working with him for 15 years.
Yeah.
And if we hire you, and he goes, so does 25 of our players.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like they're very ingrained in the band. Makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
I had no problem with that. But you know, I get work enough for every season.
Yeah.
I get hooked up solid with the Samru family.
Yeah.
So Amaret, like, you know, he's a arranger for 4 bands. I'm usually the tuner for most of them.
Nice.
Unless the owner of the band is really against it. Like he wants me. He you know, and he's got Samru power. which doesn't, it only goes so far.
Yeah.
You know, it's the people that own the band that make the decision. But he's in there talking to him, and he's like, I really want Billy to be the tuner.
Yeah.
And that usually works out. So I usually blend for, you know, about 4 or 5 bands during a season.
Yeah.
And if the bands run all the way to finals, I'm working all the way through finals. If the bands drop out, I stay at Gil's Pan Shop. Like, they're like, Billy, you're part of our family. There's that small percentage of Trinities that just simply don't want an American down there. Andy Norell has met with the same resistance
for years.
Yeah. And
There's nothing new.
But the unfortunate thing is, like, that small percentage of people are the most vocal.
Yeah.
You know, and so there was some controversy the first couple years I was down there, but this year I didn't get called white boy once.
Yeah.
like I was just like, I realized when I'm playing, like, wow, no one called me white boy.
True.
Next, like most people knew my name or whatever, and I train. I will sit with these young Trini tuners and train them. Like work with them and train them.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is what Ellie showed me to do.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Japan, and
are they receptive to that?
Okay, as long as first of all, the 20-year-olds, they know they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So I can just be like, you hear this now, you know this sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I would do. This is what Ellie taught me to do. This is what I would do here.
Yeah.
And they're receptive. The ones who are like in my age group, that's different.
Yeah.
They feel competition with you. But that doesn't mean that we're not friendly. It depends on their personality.
Right.
If we're not friendly, we won't sit down and talk shop.
Right.
But I am just very careful to treat them as an equal.
Right.
Because there are things I can learn from them, and I have. A lot of that old competitive spirit from years ago, you know, when every tuner was like secretive about what they do.
Yeah.
And that's one of Ellie's greatest gifts, is that he had the foresight to at least
to share it.
I mean, in Trinidad I don't go around saying Ellie's the best in the world.
Right.
Because even though I think he is, I don't say that.
Right.
I just say I learned from Ellie Manning. And I tell people he's still getting better. And, you know, down there, Butch is king and Guppy. And those guys are masters.
Yeah.
You know, they're different styles. It's a Gibson Les Paul and it's a Fender Stratocaster. Both are fucking fantastic guitars. You know,
yeah, but anyway, it was good talking to you, man.
Talking to you too, Greg.
Yeah.
We never really got to know each other before.
I know.
Man, you say a lot of smart, intelligent things. Like I'd be happy.
Yeah, man.
Call me anytime.
Yeah.